Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA weekly analysis and assessment. As we noted, NVIDIA went further down last week. So another bad week for NVIDIA just ended. In this video, we'll take a look what are the prospects for NVIDIA to go up next week. We'll use latest fundamentals and technical charts to do this analysis. Now, let's get started. You see NVIDIA stock movement for last Friday on your screen. The Friday was a good day for NVIDIA. It went up about 3.87%. But overall, last week, you see, NVIDIA is down about 8.82%. Year to date, NVIDIA is still down about 9.7%. And last 1 year, NVIDIA is still up about 51%. Let's take a look weekly candlestick chart for NVIDIA. So based on the weekly candlestick chart for NVIDIA, as you see on your screen, we see the red candlestick for last week that shows NVIDIA went down, and 1 week prior another red candlestick. So last 2 weeks were not good for NVIDIA, but before that NVIDIA had a good time, 2 weeks in a row, and before that we had another red candlestick. Last 10 to 12 weeks, we did not see a good momentum on Nvidia. So lots of volatility we noticed in last 10 to 12 weeks. But before that, you see some uptrend on Nvidia and also another uptrend we noted sometime last year in Q2. So next week, I still think that Nvidia would show some volatility because of a new tariffs gonna be implemented next week. But if Trump further postpone the tariffs, that will be a good news for the market. We'll see what happens on Monday or Tuesday regarding the tariffs. But if you take a look, the economic data due next week, you see that Monday we do not have any inflation or the job data coming, so pretty quiet. Tuesday, nothing much as well. Wednesday, we have the ADP employment data, and that's important. So, any job data or inflation data as of this point is very important. Thursday, weekly initial jobless claims. So, another important data. So, expectation is 243K. So, let's see what happens. On Friday, next week, we have jobs report and unemployment rate as well. So, that's also very critical. But you see, last week we have the PC index data got published, and the inflation did not go up year over year compared with last month. It was 2.5% versus 2.5%, and also year over year core PC 2.6% versus 2.6%. So that was a good sign that inflation as of Friday last week did not go up for the last month compared with year to year basis. And now let's take a look technical charts. You see 180-day hourly interval chart on your screen and also Fibonacci levels. As of this point, Nvidia is trading around 125. The next level of support was 121, and that is based on 62% Fibonacci retracement. And after that is 112, and that is based on 78% Fibonacci retracement. So as I noted in my previous videos, 112 is a very strong support level. I do not expect Nvidia to go down below 112 in next few weeks, depending on the current fundamentals. On the upper side, the next level of resistance is 127, and after that is 133. In my opinion, next week Nvidia should be able to break this resistance of 127, and it should try to go further up, and most probably Nvidia should be trading between 133 and 127 next week, and that's my assessment. After that is 140. I do not think Nvidia can go and touch 140 unless and until the tariff that gonna be imposed next week gets further postponed. If it does, then that will create a positive momentum on Nvidia and overall market. And based on the MACD chart, you see that MACD had a very strong negative momentum last week. It had a very steep slope, right? But we saw some recovery happen on Friday, and that was a good sign. As of this point, MACD line is slightly above the zero level, and that tells that Nvidia got some positive momentum on Friday, and it should carry on Monday as well, based on MACD. Now, let's take a look forward P for Nvidia and other AI stocks. Forward P for Nvidia at this point is at 34.86, is still low, and that tells Nvidia has some room to go further up before the next earnings. As I mentioned in my previous video, that GTC conference gonna start from March 17th this month, and that should create some positive momentum for Nvidia around that GTC conference. So this means that if Nvidia for some reason goes further down to 112 level, that will be an excellent buy for Nvidia to keep it for some time. Moving on, Palantir forward piece 157 continues to go down. SMCI 16.03. The last few days for SMCI was also not good. AMD 22.54, also not a good week for AMD last week. Now let's take a look some news regarding Nvidia. I show you the latest news on Nvidia on just one screen. So as I noted, this one that says 4% Nvidia went up on Friday, that's a good sign, and that outperforms competitors on Friday. So let's take a look. This one that says the US stock market is looking played out. It's time to shift some assets abroad. So some analysts started talking about we should be investing on other areas as well outside of the US market because of the volatility that we see in last week or so. But I don't think that would be a good idea in the long term because US stock market will start bouncing back anytime soon. Once we have some clarity on the tariffs and the chip export restriction in next week or so, we'll see more impact due to tariffs in next coming weeks. But after that, you'll see market would absorb those shocks into the price. So after that, you see market will start bouncing back. Another good one that says rotation to sell off. The stock market is at tipping point. I read this story and that's a very good analysis. Let's open it. So if you have some time, try to read this analysis that they presented. They try to compare the growth stock versus the value stock and when it is the right time to see the rotation is happening. So what are the different indicators that tell that? So they talked about those indicators and the timeline. And their conclusion is, as of this point, we see some rotation happening, but we still not there yet, meaning that the growth stock is still has a bright future versus the value stock in the near future. We still see some transition or rotation happening, but not much at this point, based on the correlation index that they presented here. Another one that says Taiwan semi faces geopolitical strain due to US scrutiny on Huawei's chip access. So those kind of volatility we'll see on TSMC stock as well because TSMC is also under pressure due to the chip restrictions. Now this one that says AI stocks may be falling, but the AI trade is far from over. So they're making a good point. We see that AI stock is falling in last week or so, but in the long term, you see the AI trade is still a valuable investment at this point. So now this one that talks about PC index, and that says that the PC index came in line with the estimates NVIDIA rebounds. So we already talked about that in this video before. And scrolling down further, and this says that NVIDIA stock rises. Is it becoming a value stock? So in my opinion, no, not at this point. Still, I consider NVIDIA as a growth stock. So Supermicro stock is dropping. Goldman Sachs warns of these SMCI risks. I'm still invested on SMCI since past month or two, but at this point I am in loss. But I'll keep holding it because these levels SMCI is not sustainable. So it has to bounce back in next few weeks. So if I scroll down further, I do not see any other news or data. So those are pretty generic. So that's all about NVIDIA news as of Friday last week. Let's take a look my watch list. So in my watch list for Friday, most of the stocks are green with the exception of SMCI and Dell. Okay. So that's all about my analysis and assessment for next week. If I summarize this video, yes, there may be a volatility on NVIDIA stock next week, and it all depends on the tariffs and other chip restriction thing plays out next week. But after next week, we should get some clarity, and Nvidia should take one direction after that. And also, due to the GTC conference coming on March 17th, Nvidia should gain some momentum just before that. I hope you like the video. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more in the next video. Take care.